Hi everyone, my name is John Corbett, or as a lot of people know me, Corbettmaths, and today what I want to do is I want to introduce a brand new resource I'm adding to the Corbettmaths website, and they're the Key Stage 1 5-a-days. So in terms of the 5-a-days, it's 5 questions for every single day of the year, going from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. And the idea is that the students in your class or your child at home will spend 5 or 10 minutes on their mathematics most days of the year, maybe not every single day, but most days of the year. And by doing that, using that little enough to approach to mathematics, what will happen is they'll frequently revisit topics. And by frequently revisiting topics, it'll boost their retention and then in turn their confidence and then in turn their grades. So that's the idea behind the 5-a-days. And I found them to be really, really successful with my students in school, but also with my children at home. My daughter's just finished primary school and she's absolutely flying with her mathematics. And a key part of that has been the primary 5-a-days. Now, my son, he's going into year 2, which is P3 here in Northern Ireland. And whenever he was in year 1, or P2 in Northern Ireland, there was no 5-a-days there for him because he wasn't quite ready for the bronze version. So what I've done was I created 3 more versions, and they are the ruby, the emerald, and the diamond 5-a-days. So the ruby start off quite straightforward. We've got our arithmetic questions here: 5 plus 1, 11 take away 6, 13 take away 12, and so on. And then we have got some reasoning questions, and the reasoning questions are quite straightforward. So they would be for students who are generally in years 1 or P2 in Northern Ireland. But one thing I want to mention with the 5-a-days is that really I've designed them to be like those color-coded reading books. So there isn't really a set year that you have to do them in. It can be, for instance, if you're flying with your maths, like my son, he moved on to the emerald last year because he's actually loving his maths and he moved on to the emerald last year. It might be that you've got a student who's a bit older that might need to do the ruby 5-a-day because they just struggle with their maths and they just need a chance to be able to master those skills to then move on and catch up a bit. Okay, so even though I might give suggestions in terms of year groups, it's really using whichever version is most suitable for your students or your child at home, and you'll be able to figure that out by giving it to them and seeing how they get along. And if they get them all right and they find it quite straightforward, perhaps moving up to the next level so it's a bit more challenging. If you give them to them and they can't do any of the questions and you know it's too hard to bring it back down a level, or to get it just right, you want them to be able to find most of it okay, but actually to need a bit of help on some of them, and that's probably the right level of difficulty. Okay, so we've got the ruby 5-a-days, we've got the emerald 5-a-days, so we broadly aimed at students who are in year 2 or P3 in Northern Ireland. So we've got our arithmetic at the beginning and then our reasoning questions there as well. And then we've got our diamond 5-a-days. And the diamond 5-a-days, we start introducing the times tables, the multiplying by 2, 5, 10, divisions of 2, 5, and 10, and so on. And that'll be for students at the end of year 2, so approaching the end of year 2 or P3 in Northern Ireland, or even in year 3 or P4 in Northern Ireland. So that's broadly who they're aimed at. But again, it's really choosing the right version for your own students. So that's the 5-a-days that I've created to support those Key Stage 1 students and the students going into Key Stage 2. I really hope you find them useful for your students, and they're all freely accessible on the Corbettmaths website. If you go to Corbettmaths Primary and click on 5-a-days, instead of seeing the 4 versions of the 5-a-days that you would have seen before, the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, you'll now see it says ruby, emerald, diamond, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So there's now 7 versions of the 5-a-days. So hopefully there's now really something for everybody. Okay, so really, really hope you find them useful. And if you're a teacher, perhaps you might want to use these 5-a-days in your lessons. So you might want to use them as your numeracy activities every single day. And by doing those activities every day, what will happen is your students become really confident with those topics and fantastic at their maths. Also, you might want to use them as homework. Or if you teach at home, you're a home educator, or even just want to help your children at home, I really hope these 5-a-days will help you as well. So they're the brand new 5-a-days. Also, just want to mention that if you need any extra resources to support your students at home, we've also got the primary study cards, and they're ideal for students in Key Stage 2, so that'll be fantastic as well. Or if you're a teacher and you want to display, we've got the enlarged primary cards as well, and they'll be ideal for classroom displays, or even to perhaps laminate and lend them out. It's a bit of a library resource that you could use as well. That's it. They're the brand new 5-a-days that I've added to the Corbettmaths website, and I really hope you found them useful. Cheers. Bye.